let's talk about the film that also played in Cannes, the fifth film in the franchise, and with George Miller returning as a very steady guiding hand for this film series in Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga.
As the world fell, young Furiosa is snatched from the green place of many mothers and falls into the hands of the great biker horde led by the warlord Dementus. Sweeping through the wasteland, they come across the citadel, presided over by the Immortan Joe. While the two tyrants war for dominance, Furiosa must survive many trials as she puts together the means to find her way home.
It's a good one. Definitely more story than Fury Road had, which is, I guess, known for, hey, it's mainly just one really long chase scene. This movie takes place over a couple decades, from young Furiosa to an older one. I gotta say, as the guy who usually hates on the kid performances, Alila Brown, who plays young Furiosa, that was an incredible performance. She really nailed that, and then the rest of the cast also really fun. But we'll get into that in a bit. The movie is flying by with 2 hours and 30 minutes of runtime. It doesn't feel that long at all, if I'm being honest. It still has a ton of action, even if it's definitely more plot centered than it is action first. There's some incredible action scenes, especially one that we have to talk about a bit more in detail. So far, it opened on Letterboxd with a 4.0 rating. That's incredibly high. On IMDb, an 8 as well, and on Metacritic, a 79. So the people in Cannes liked it, the critics liked it, which I guess are the people in Cannes. Everyone that has seen it so far on the opening weekend liked it. Lachlan, you brought in the budget numbers. Apparently, it's 168 million. Is that correct?
Yep.
That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't a production hell for a long time, so a lot of money is spent and nothing actually happens. So that can, and also there was a lawsuit, so they could just be adding the lawsuit money into this as well. I don't know.
Hopefully they do, and they make a return on it. I would hate for this to, I guess, not make enough money to secure again another film in this franchise. It comes from Warner Brothers and Universal. It's a co-production. I didn't know that. I thought it was just Warner Brothers. But I guess Universal is distributing it. Where did you get that information?
I found Universal was distributing it in Australia.
Ah, okay. Well, Warner Brothers just drawing the short end of the stick when it comes down under, which is odd because it is an Australian film. Also, I don't know. I didn't look this up. Do they still shoot the film in Australia mainly, or where?
Yeah. So the only exception is Fury Road, and that was because where they were filming, they had flooding, so it was it was greener than usual. But yes, it was shot Broken Hill, I believe it is where they shoot it.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So you got a couple more specs before we get into review. Lachlan, you want to keep it spoiler free?
Yeah, no, I thought I'd just bring it up. I thought I'd just bring up the fact that they shot it on the Arri Alexa 65, but they also shot it on a Red Komodo and the Raptor, which are two really like compact cameras with the Reds, which is obviously how they got some of these really tighter shots. I just thought it would be really cool to talk about that. And from what I saw on IMDb, they were shot with these really cool prime DNA lenses, which have a nice little look to them.
Yeah.
Hasselblad. That was found on IMDb. I was trying to find some more information about it, but I really couldn't find much. But I just thought it was some really interesting stuff, because this film is obviously quite a visual feast, and I thought that we could get into some of the visual and audible and technical stuff in the non-spoiler review before we get into the real spoilery stuff.
For sure, yeah. We definitely both recommend you go check out the film yourself. But if you're not sure yet and you want to hear our thoughts a bit before we talk spoilers, then maybe let's talk about that stuff that was shown in the trailers and had some reasons to concern for a lot of people, me included a bit, because it reminded me of 3,000 Years of Longing, that had like this odd CGI look that I wasn't the biggest fan of. I know it was definitely intentional by how intentional George Miller as a filmmaker is. That was what he envisioned. Maybe it wasn't greatest. Now in this one, there was concern. Hey, it's not as incredibly crazy as Fury Road is going to be when it comes to the action and how much of it is going to be practical. So there's going to be more CGI, also just by the medium growing bigger and becoming more easy to use. It just makes sense to use more CGI. Was that anything that took away from the film for you, or did it still feel as practical as I guess the rest of the films in this franchise have felt like?
Yeah, so obviously it's a bit of a departure, and there are still some practical elements in the film. Don't think that they just ripped everything out, whacked them onto a green screen. But first things first, Miller's getting older in age, so he's probably not going to be as versatile to go out and shoot on location as much as he was able to when he was younger, especially looking like 10 years ago. And I think that CGI is super important. And remember, when people think about practical action, they think about Fury Road, but Fury Road is very practical, but it is enhanced with CGI. And there are some very heavy CGI moments in Fury Road, and there are some really botched CGI moments in Fury Road that don't look that great. In Furiosa, there's a lot more CGI. However, I don't think it takes away from the overall action, but I will tell you where it does take away the most. And that's the profile of the picture. This is going to come a bit more into the visual stuff, because when you have to light something where it's going to have a digital background in place, the lighting is quite flat. So what ends up happening is the image that we get, the lighting is a little bit off for our characters compared to what is actually presented in the background, and your brain can kind of see that. And there are definitely like films that do a better job at this than others, but this film didn't really do a good job for that. So it was less the fact that it was CGI for action and more the fact that it was CGI backgrounds which really didn't match the lighting that was set up on characters, which ended up making the image look a lot flatter. You get a really deep image with the practical effects done with Fury Road, and you get that with the other films, where this, even though there were practical elements, because of the digitalness of the background in scenes, it's often a flat image, and it doesn't really give you that depth that you're looking for. So even though it's pretty and it looks cool, it's not really a great picture. So unfortunately, the CGI action, yeah, that's fine. I'm totally cool with it. I thought the action scenes were great. It was actually just the normal, like the standard shots of background which really got me.
You wrote down center framing. Am I correct to assume that you feel like there's a lot of like, hey, there's one character in frame or maybe two characters in frame, but there's no depth in the frame compared to something like being on the war rig in Fury Road, where you got all the brides in the background and you have Charlize, and you got why am I blanking on his name?
Tom Hardy,
exactly. You got them in there, and it constantly is like swiveling the camera around to give you a different perspective, and there's also someone underneath. There's less of that happening. Is that what you felt?
So the center framing thing is a technique that Miller's using in the film. It's a lot better used in Fury Road because of how much action happens and how much is happening on scene. He actually makes the majority of the action happen in the center part of the frame, which means your eyes don't have to move. So this film still uses a lot of that, where a lot of the film takes place in the center and you don't have to worry about the rest of the world happening on the outside. So the center framing part is just a technique that he's used.
Yeah, I saw the interview that Letterboxd published with him. He was talking about like guiding the eye and how natural it is to him. And it's always a big focus.
He's a visual storyteller, and he's really good at that. And I think that those techniques that he's using are really good. So those central framing moments are quite good. You get the classic sort of push-in shot from a wide into the character, which is really awesome. And you get that really like fun sort of, and if you watch it carefully, you notice that a lot of the shots are sped up, like just the tiniest amount, right? They're not sped up a major amount, but the characters are moving a little bit too quickly, and it's just the look of that is Mad Max in a way, because you have that with the original trilogy, and you have that here with the current newer films as well. But you really see the technical skill of him with that center framing, with overall him using that in action moments and then going away from it when it comes to really capturing landscape. there's that great moment where Furiosa exits the war rig and it just does a 360 degree of the landscape. And it just
Yeah.
shows her in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And you just take it in and you're just like, there's nothing. Where is she going to? And it was like the perfect like use of the camera moving around. And
Mhm.
when he's using the practical camera, it's great. The moment that it takes you out is when the camera moves in an unnatural way. And you get a lot of that with the CGI action where and that's the only part of the CGI that took me out was the unnatural camera movements moving from one area of like this computer generated image to another, like it just moves, and it's just like a camera wouldn't be able to go from there down to here with all of this action happening. You get a really locked off shot with Fury Road, and you don't have that in this film, so a lot of the action is great, but sometimes feels unbelievable at points. But you get these really awesome visual moments where he takes the camera, he moves it around Furiosa, you see how barren the wasteland is. And another really good visual moment is towards the end of the film where the showdown finally happens between Furiosa and Dementus. And visually, for the entirety of the film, you see landscape. You see a lot of what's happening in the background, but he ends up putting them in a dust storm so that there is no background. You are solely focusing on the characters. And I think what's really important to remember with this film over the other Mad Max, or at least with Fury Road in particular, this is a heavy revenge film. It is heavily about narrative. It's heavily about these characters compared to the actual action that's happening on scene. And that is a clear departure from what people are probably expecting going into this film, seeing Fury Road.
Yeah, do you want to talk about anything else before we get into, like, you already teased, I guess, kind of spoilery talk towards the end there, but I feel like it's fine. I mean, it's obviously a character that doesn't pop up in the later films, so, you know, his fate is to be assumed. And,
Shocker, right?
you know, yeah, and that's not really what this is about ultimately, which is a smart choice to do. I feel like we can talk about spoilers and I guess the journey of Furiosa, of her, I guess, getting ready to escape from the Citadel in Fury Road. I guess being dragged in, showing her whole backstory of the like what's it called again? Like the place that she's taken from.
The
From the
green
green,
place.
just the green place. It's simple. It's it's Aussie, of course. It's just the green
We're
place 'cause it's
Australians. We
green.
don't complicate things.
Yeah. Fair, fair. Yeah, and ultimately, like, you know, that comes full circle in Fury Road, where the green place doesn't exist anymore. And I feel like this movie gets to explore the other places a bit more with Gastown, Bullet Farm, less the Citadel. I don't feel like we get a lot of the Citadel, and then also the myth that Dementus creates around himself and how that crumbles and ultimately like dies down as he dies with it. But it happens before that, and it's just a spectacular revenge film with a lot of great action set pieces where you're obviously rooting for the main character the whole time. Just a solid all around film. I don't really have a lot of complaints. I think, like you, I also really enjoyed the music. I think the score was great. And another shout out goes to the sound design that really pairs well with the editing as well of how much there's going on. And like that was another strong thing about Fury Road, how it always felt like an impact on the decisions that characters make. And you can feel it, you can sense it, you could hear it, all of it, you could experience it. And this movie just basically picks up where Fury Road has left off, or where it's going to lead into Fury Road. And also think you got a great cast here. The only person who I was a bit like on the fence on or like was questioning the inclusion was Tom Burke as Praetorian Jack, because it felt like we need a character that needs to be taken away from Furiosa. And I don't know if it completely needed that, because as an audience we obviously know that this dude is a red shirt. You know, he's going to die. And maybe he's not even going to be witnessed. So yeah, I don't know. I was a bit on the fence about that one. But yeah, what did you think about all of it with spoiler talk?
So you talk about editing. Shout out to George Miller's wife, Margaret
Yeah.
Sexel, I think it is, editor of the movie, along with Elliot Kapman.
Mhm.
really cool to see a wife husband combo in the industry, like editing the movies that they make together and then going
Yeah.
home and having to live together. So good on them for working and being romantic together. It's really fun to see that. But to get into spoiler talk, I talked about how this film is a revenge film, which means it's going to obviously depart from what made Fury Road Fury Road, and Fury Road is an action movie, not a revenge movie. So the elements and design of that film are going to be inherently different. And I think the biggest departure from the rest of the franchise that this film does, which I'm slowly coming around to enjoying, but right now I'm sitting in the boat that I don't, and that is chapters.
Yeah.
Chapters. There's 5 chapters. Chapter 1, The Pole of Inaccessibility. Chapter 2, Lessons from the Wasteland. Chapter 3, The Stowaway. Chapter 4, Homeward. And Chapter 5, Beyond Vengeance. Mad Max films are all about pacing. They're all about the thrill, and Fury Road is a fantastic example of perfect pacing, in my opinion, because even when its low moments are happening, it's not like it's taking a massive break. It's giving you that moment to breathe before it kicks back off again. But when you chapterize something, there is a clear pause and break. Now, I get it. You're telling the story of Furiosa. Furiosa was a child. Now she's a grown-ass adult. You can't really tell that if you're going to be telling it in like a nice consecutive way. There are ways of doing time jumps, obviously, without just making it a chapter. But it felt like this was the... I don't want to say cheaper way out, but it's the only way that I can kind of say it, is like they decided to go, all right, cool, let's do chapters instead of making a cooler transition to make it flow a bit better. And it's... Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, but personally, I just don't think it fits with the Mad Max way, where you kind of want to keep that momentum going. You don't want to stop the engine, right? You don't want to stall the engine. You just want to keep the engine going. And unfortunately, I just feel like chapterizing it does that. And when that first chapter came up, I was like, okay, I'll ignore it for now. By the 3rd chapter, The Stowaway, I realized something. I realized the analogy that I'm going to use.
Mm-hmm.
What did I say about Dune 2?
Lots of things.
I said we wouldn't be able to do Dune 2 without Dune Part 1.
Yeah.
Because Part 1 is world building, it's slow, it's character focused. Dune 2 is action. They did it in order. George Miller is not. He did Fury Road first, and now has decided to go back and do Furiosa second. This entire film is a setup for Fury Road, which means 2 things. The action can probably get to as good, but can't be better than Fury Road, because that takes place after advancements, obviously after time, and there's these characters, right? So you can't really have, technology that doesn't exist yet. You can. You can't be going, oh, cool, we used to have these people who swing on poles, but then we realized that was really dangerous, so we stopped doing that now. Here are people who fly, right? They can't do that because in Fury Road, those pole people exist. So they have a restriction of where they can kind of go, right? So they have to introduce new characters, have to introduce new things. So what I realized is this film is essentially going, here's the setup, here's the character and depth that you need to go into Fury Road and enjoy it more. Because let me tell you, as someone who just watched Mad Max 1, 2, and 3, Furiosa, and then Fury Road, my God, how fucking good is Fury Road? And it is really, really good when you have way more character knowledge of Furiosa. Mm-hmm. And it's fucking great. But that means this film lives in the shadow of Fury Road. It's never going to reach the same heights. So I say that it reaches the same heights when it comes to sound, editing, visuals are a slight step down, narrative is a step up, and action is a step down, but it's never going to be to the same degree as what Fury Road is. It's living in that shadow. And the thing is, it was never meant to compete with Fury Road. It's an add-on to Fury Road. This is meant to be watched as one big film.
Which is why I'm a bit surprised that I don't see any double feature showings for this film anywhere, which is just they're missing out. What are they doing?
I don't know what they're doing.
Definitely should be doing.
And the part that really drove that home for me, right? The part that really drove home, this film is living in the shadow of its sequel, of its film that came before it, is in the credits, okay?
Yeah.
Because what do they show in the credits?
clips
They
from
show
Fury Road.
stills and clips from Fury Road. It's living in the shadow of the film that is bigger and better than it because it was made before it, and this is the film to add on to it. I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily saying that this is a bad film. I'm just saying this film had a pretty bad foot forward, right? They did Dune 1 so they could do Dune 2. They didn't do Furiosa to then do Fury Road. They've just done it in the wrong order, and I think
But do you think they could
it's
have
not a
done it
bad
other way
thing.
around? You know,
I don't know.
is
I think
yeah,
if Furiosa came out first, I don't think it would have been as successful because I feel like people would have people were already mad that Furiosa was the main character compared to Max in Fury Road. If they were just to straight up forget about Max and do that little subtle reference and then bring Max back in Fury Road, it wouldn't have probably gotten off the ground. And
yeah.
it's a weird thing because this is the only thing about this film which is not making it a perfect 5-star. And you said this with your Khan movies is that you know on the rewatch which one of these films are probably going to be 5 stars.
Yeah.
I don't think this film is ever going to get to 5 stars for me. I think
No,
that
to
it
me, it was
literally just
also-
can't get to. It's 4.5.
Yeah, which is still like if you say it doesn't live up to, I'd say top 5, maybe top 3 action movies of all time, Fury Road, you know, one of the best films ever made, then it's like that's a steep thing to clear.
That's a
If
hill.
it's even close to that, that's really impressive. And I just thought this movie had the potential to fall flat, for Chris Hemsworth to just not work in this over the top, like he's playing a different kind of Australian. He said he combined, I think, his uncle, like great uncle or something like that he heard talk back in the day, the voice that he puts on, the over the top characters, the bizarre world. Maybe if you look closer into that, when you focus more on the story, on the characters, over just them killing each other and chasing each other, that it all falls apart. But it doesn't, which makes it to me really impressive that it is able to sustain being looked at under a bit more of a microscope, you know, a bit closer. And I like the expansion of the world building that we get to see, Bullet Farm and stuff like that. I wish we had seen even more of Dementis, because I feel like over the years, as he fades more into the background and Furiosa is like getting bigger and bigger within the Citadel, able to take him on, then he becomes lesser of a focus because he's also fading away in popularity around the wasteland, which does make sense in a narrative sense. But I still wish we had gotten a bit more out of him, and he ends up being a bit one note until we get that final standoff where he has like a big old monologue all about like revenge, where I feel like the only time where chapters are are like needed or like good to sum it up, it's Beyond Vengeance. I feel like I would have liked it more if the movie like basically ended and he puts like epilogue Beyond Vengeance, and that's the whole thing, as if the whole succeeding in getting your revenge is an afterthought of what it ultimately means for Furiosa. But I would just go away. Like I would put away the chapters. I don't think they're necessary either. Instead of just having one thing of like, 20 years later, or he wouldn't do that. So I feel like it's a way to go around that, but it ultimately does the same thing, if not something worse, by having like summaries and closing chapters that way. But yeah, what did you think about that like ending, which I felt like went on for quite a while, where like Hemsworth is talking and talking and talking and talking. Does it get too much? Has it earned like that
No.
big monologue ending at the end?
Absolutely not. He did not talk too much. He talked just the right amount because I was really worried, and I shouldn't be, because we're talking about George Miller, who is a fantastic director, knows what he's doing, and I should never have doubted him because he set up one of the best payoffs I've had in recent movie watching experience. And that is with the seed. The seed that is given to Furiosa by her mother, that is throughout the entire film that we see. And I just, what are they going to do with this? It's just, they're finally going to plant that seed somewhere, and it's going to be great. For them to build up to this ending, which, as I said earlier, sandstorm, you can't see any background, you're solely focused on the conversation between Furiosa and Dementis, which, by the way, Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Hemsworth, absolutely destroy it. Hemsworth in particular is a notable shout out. He did a fantastic job, in my opinion. I think stole the show for me. To have
he's cast wrong in a lot of stuff. He's capable to do a lot,
Oh yeah,
you know, and this
100%.
just
He can
shows it
do
again.
range.
Yeah,
To have that ending where they're having the conversation and for them to kind of become the same. He says, I have lost people too, but he is not, he has let go of this thing that she is holding on to. And that's the key difference between these two characters. And for them to kind of come to the agreement of that they are the same after he goes on this fantastic monologue, by the way. He
yeah,
does a fantastic job. He goes through the different ranges that he can do as a actor to then end on them going with a narrator, which I thought, oh, here we go, going, here is how he said he would die. Here is actually what people said he might have died by. But this is actually what happened. And to see him, be killed in those ways and then revealed to be sitting on top of the Citadel with that seed planted in him is one of the best twists, ending, payoff reveals that I've had in a while. And I just went, that was worth it. That was so enjoyable to see that setup come all the way full circle. And that, because obviously, as you said, he's not in Fury Road. So I knew he was going to die, but they don't kill him. They do something even better. And I found that really, really enjoyable.
So I guess to explain it to someone who maybe, I guess it's pretty self-explanatory, but basically the green grows out of him for the Citadel, essentially.
He has the seed planted in his groined area, and there's a tree growing out of him in a naked body on top of the Citadel.
Yeah.
And he has water dripping on his mouth. He's probably fed the food. He's somehow still alive in this crazy world, where anything can pretty much happen. And that's the ending of the film, and that's Furiosa's revenge. And then it literally leads into Fury Road, and that's the ending of the film.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, the transition from Anya Taylor-Joy to Charlize Theron is a bit like they do it well with like how good you could do it, as good a job as you could. But I mean, they don't look alike at all, which in Mad Max is like the one franchise where I feel like that's okay, just because it's always about, especially ending on the Dementis ending of like, this is what people say, the myth or whatever, this is what actually happened. Because like the Mad Max character has always been such a myth of like a guy that's just kind of there, that like each of the first 3 Mad Max films, it could be someone entirely different. It's all played by Mel Gibson, but there's nothing that really ties them together in an overarching way. And this is the first one that really connects, I guess, 2 films to each other. But having that whole mythology around it, I feel like you get away with it. Although they obviously like kind of look nothing alike. Which is maybe just because Anya Taylor-Joy has such a unique face with like huge eyes, and she can play a lot with that. I think there's some like the thing that they use for the poster where she's at the bullet farm and the fire is cast around her is a really strong imagery. As far as action scenes go, do you have a highlight, or like the movie's also pretty brutal?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the action scene with the flying characters. I thought that was quite visually fun.
Yeah.
But I also really enjoyed the what was it? The what's it called?
One of the places, or
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called now.
the gas town? Bullet
Yeah,
farm.
there was like the Gastown riot moment, and not really for the action, but the you see in Hemsworth's face him losing control, and he's wanting to regain the control. That was just a fun little sequence. That was my little favorite sequence, because I was like, oh, okay, there's actually going to be a disruption here. So I really enjoyed that, but mostly that first action scene with the team that left Hemsworth's group and was flying was just, I was like, okay, we're back in Fury Road action territory. Let's go.
That's I feel like they at least had to have like one of those moments in. It's like, okay, that's the thing that everyone's going to talk about. To me, I think the favorite moment was just that like the arm or the hand dangling. It's like okay, cool, and like how grotesque it was when she got a arm like in between there. It felt like this was obviously like, hey, this is the moment where they call him Han Solo, and that's where he gets his name. And this is the moment that you can go to, oh, Soy Jack, that's when it happens. Here, it, like, the moment where she injures her hand that way as well, in that crazy way. It happens so quickly that it's not made like a big, you obviously realize what's happening.
Yeah, and you go, oh, this is it. This is how it happened.
It just happened.
Yeah.
And you weren't ready for it, as the character wasn't ready for it. It's not like I am going to chop off your hand right now, and it's going to be something that is in a different movie later on that you all know, wink at the camera. So great moment there. I feel like all of that was it was entertaining from beginning to end. And another movie where I didn't really feel like the runtime was incredibly like long. It didn't feel long. I felt like it had a lot to offer in all of its 5 or 6 chapters. 5 chapters, I think. Yeah,
5.
Anything else you wanted to add to Furiosa?
No, I don't think I really have much else to say.
Yeah, just
No?
Rictus, Erectus, and Scrotus as the sons of Morton Jack. It's just
Morton
the name.
Jack.
Yeah.
Who's Morton Jack?
Wait, what did I say?
He said Morton Jack. His name's Morton Joe.
Joe, sorry. So Joe and Jack.
I like
all
Morton
the
Jack
same.
though. Yeah, all the same.
Praetorian Jack is that's the Tom Burke character. That's why I messed it up there. Anyways, I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. Lachlan, you said it's the same for you, right?
4.5. Yep.
If you were to pair it up with another film, what would you choose? I got a good one for this one.
Oh, you do? Do you want to say yours?
Sure, yeah. I feel like this is such a revenge film that it just makes sense to pair another female-led revenge film up with it, and that's Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill Volume, I guess 1 and 2, or the one where they cut it together. I don't care. Just those films. They're great revenge films.
Or the one where they cut it together?
Have you ever watched it in like one go, or?
I haven't. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah, me neither.
So we want to talk about a strong female lead in a science fiction movie.
Alien?
There's only one that I could really think of, and you got it right there. I'm going to do Aliens.
Aliens, okay. Yeah.
Aliens.
Because it's no, Aliens takes place after Alien. It would have been perfect if it's a sequel
Correct.
that is also a prequel at the same time. Which just makes it a prequel, I guess, not a sequel. But let's just make it complicated for the sake of being complicated.
I could do Prometheus, because Prometheus obviously takes place.
Any of the Alien films a revenge film, or?
I
was thinking about Terminator 2 as well.
All of them have revenge in them.
Yeah.
Best revenge
of the
films.
Jedi.
Sith? I like it.
Sith, yeah.
Best revenge films: Kill Bill 1, Kill Bill 2. Okay, fucking shocker. Memento, The Crow, Gladiator, Man on Fire, Payback, Old Boy, Taken, Cape Fear, Commando, Munich, Mad Max, Death Wish, Leon's Professional. Give me something. Let me go. Okay, give me a number between 1 and 50.
37.
37. My double feature is A Time to Kill.
Is that a James Bond?
Joel
thing?
Schumacher, hell yeah. Matthew McConaughey, Sandra Bullock, and Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay.
There you go. That's my double feature.